This is Andrew Paul Cronin, and you're listening to the Q&A with A.P.C., the show that features conversations with artists, cultural figures, policymakers, performers, and other innovators living in Virginia. Episode 20, Kelsie McNair. When she was just 22 years old, my guest, Kelsie McNair, opened one of the most creative and successful retail stores in southeastern Virginia. Her store, with Lavender and Lace, started as a lifestyle and fashion blog when Kelsie was in college in Boston, Massachusetts. While living in Boston, she began to sell vintage clothing on the online retail site Etsy, and after graduating and moving back to Virginia, she opened her storefront in Norfolk's historic Ghent. The store became a creative home for artists and musicians and became one of the most respected and popular vintage clothing destinations on the East Coast. Kelsie closed the store in 2015. That same year, Kelsie, who creates custom cell phone covers that are decorated with pressed flowers and plants, made national headlines when she sued Target and one of their suppliers in U.S. District Court, claiming unauthorized copies of two of her designs were being sold by Target. The case was eventually settled out of court. In addition to fashion and retail, Kelsie is a talented photographer, filmmaker, artist, and musician. She is currently finishing work on a solo music project called Pyrrhic Win. In this episode of the Q&A with A.P.C., Kelsie talks about why she closed her store, the 3 things every woman should have in her wardrobe. She breaks down her process for writing songs. We play rapid fire, and much, much more. I was watching a Leonard Cohen documentary, who died recently, as you know. And when he was on the mountain being a monk, he heard that there's only one question worth asking. And so I'll ask you that question now, which is, what are you going through now?
I'm going through a nice, soft bubble period right now, which makes me more aware than ever that they're really temporary. So you're catching me at a good time. Things are kind of going well in my business because it's Christmas. I have a lot of art projects that are in the works. I just maybe found someone who's going to help me with my music, and I'm feeling very content in myself, but it's not always like that. So when I'm there, I just let myself be really comfortable in it and stretch my limbs in it and try to get as much out of those good pockets as possible.
When you say a bubble, do you mean like you're in a bubble and nothing can pop the bubble, or meaning like you are riding on top of a bubble and bouncing around like freely?
I'm in a bubble and I happen to be floating in some space where nothing's really hurting me. But I mean, things still hurt. The news still hurts. Unfortunate circumstances involving, drama or diet or skin regimen or, there's lots of things. But overall, all the things that I work for every day are at some sort of level spot instead of one being really down, one being kind of up. I just juggle so many things.
Yeah.
So there's the odds are something's not going to be great. But right now everything's pretty nice.
That's good.
It's so nice.
What state were you born in?
I was born in Virginia.
Okay. What was that like?
In terms of what?
Do you feel like it provided you with the things that you were looking for growing up?
I don't know what people look for as they grow up.
What did you look for?
I don't know what I looked for. I just kind of existed and played. My parents divorced when I was really young, and my father lived in the Midwest, and every summer and every other Christmas I would pack all my stuff away and go there for 2 months or a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So I started traveling really early. Those times, I feel like they influence a lot of my work today and how I can sort of compartmentalize parts of my life and take myself out of the moment into another space so that I can calm myself down or whatever. It did take a long time for me to understand what was happening. And
with the divorce and the separation and the traveling?
Yeah, with just the space that I got to take up. in a totally different way. I mean, from the day school ended to the day school started, I'd be someone else's responsibility. And like the travel to that place, sometimes it was with my dad and sometimes it was on a plane by myself. You know, I had to like learn this independence pretty early. And I remember being like slightly scared but at some point I just like couldn't wait to go. And then that was like a continuous thing as I got older. I just was like ready to go do something else for a while.
So one of the difficult things about doing research on you is that you do so many different things and work in so many different mediums. Photography, you're a filmmaker, guitarist, designer, business owner, singer, bookbinder, blogger, traveler, flower lover. Which one of those makes you feel the most like you? And I could hand over the list if it would help you.
Right now, I'm feeling pretty fulfilled by making conceptual artwork. And that's kind of a new thing, new for this moment in my life.
Explain what that means.
I spent the past 7 years working on a vintage clothing brand. And so I spent all this time curating an identity and branding this product. And I taught myself how to shoot in a way that I wanted to show off this idea of a woman and not an idea of a woman character, of a strong, independent person who is following her dreams no matter what anyone says or how anyone feels about it. And I've loved that, but it's just been me making beautiful work without any real meaning behind it, apart from the independence and me just doing something that I want to do, which in itself is sort of my own little fight.
Mm-hmm.
But after I closed my store down, I had been toying with this idea of just like, I want to make something for a cause. I've been thinking a lot about what all of this has done for me and done to me and what it means to be like self-sufficient and what it means to be an artist and how difficult it's been to just be a woman and feel confident in all of those things. I want to have conversations around the things that I'm making now, which wasn't ever a priority to me. So now I am trying to make things with the intent of them inspiring conversation. That is what I put on my own conceptual work.
Was it not enough just to create a beautiful aesthetic in a photograph or something like that?
Yeah, it was always enough. It was more than enough. It has always fulfilled me. But I think at this point in time and in history and in my life personally, like I don't want to just make pretty things to be seen for 5 minutes and then forgotten. And I think that is where I kept running into problems. I just did photo shoots after photo shoots after photo shoots and made products that I loved and that were beautiful, but they had no lasting effects on anyone.
But you don't know that.
I mean, I don't know that, but I just wanted more from the work that I was doing.
Yeah.
I want to have conversations with women. I want to talk about my place in the world. I want to explore why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling and see if other people are sort of there with me.
Right.
Yeah, I want to grow, and I think making work for a purpose like helps with that.
To go back, like the music or photography or those things came most naturally to you with the least amount of effort.
Photography.
Yeah.
Yeah. I graduated from high school and went straight to TCC. I took I graduated a year early because I was just so ready to be a fish out of school. And then I just jumped right back in. And I took a photo class, which I had not been a visual creative yet. I was 16 and I hit up my dad, who was a photographer. And I was like, hey, I'm going to take this photo class. I don't know. I just need to do it because I need to take some art classes. And do you have a camera I could borrow or something? And he sent me a whole box of just old film cameras and lenses. And I took, my first roll of film was just like around my house. And I took this picture of my cat. His name is Sprite. And like I developed that roll, and the first moment that I saw these pictures, I just like knew that this was a part of my life now. There's this picture of him. He's just sitting on the ground And he's just so beautifully like in focus, and I captured so much of his like personality and his essence just in like 1 second of an exposure. And it just translated something like really, I felt a lot looking at this thing. And I was like, wow, if this image can convey something inside of me, like I need to continue doing that. So I just played with it for years and years and years and years. And I play with it every day.
Do you think there's a photography gene? Like, do you think you were built with it inside of you already?
I mean, maybe. That's an interesting theory.
You've ever thought about that?
Nope.
What was the first thing, maybe it was this picture, what was the first thing you did that you felt was a creative expression of you and your personality?
It was definitely the first couple of rolls of film. I remember taking my friends out. And this is a story I hear a lot and I see a lot now. But when I was like in TCC, like I don't remember people spending time this way, so it was kind of weird. We'd just go out, I'd bring some friends with me, and we just go on these adventures, and I just take film photos of it.
Uh-huh.
And it was weird, but I just was having fun with it, and like those early photos, I felt so connected to them because they transferred this moment that I was having with these people. The silver halide crystals in my camera just like amplified all of the feelings and expressions that were taking place in those moments and like created memories for me. So those photos are now things that I definitely remember. So it also helped with that since I have such a fuzzy and hazy memory. Like pictures, they amplify the reality. And that's something I'm also interested in, how they sort of, they're little falsehoods. But yeah, definitely film photo early on.
Did you go to the graveyard?
Didn't go to the graveyard.
Oh, that seemed like such a cliche thing that could have happened.
I could have.
You started singing in the Virginia Children's Choir when you were in first grade.
You did some research, man.
What got you started singing?
My mom taught at the elementary school that I went to. And we just had a music class. And my music teacher went up to my mom, and her name was Miss Elser, and she was like, Sandy, did you know your daughter can sing? And my mom was like, yeah, of course. And she was like, no, she can sing. You should do something about it.
Like sing.
Yeah. And I didn't know. I just was in the class with all the other kids. And my mom took me to the Virginia Children's Choir, and I think I got a scholarship, and I just sort of joined right on into that. And it was an interesting learning curve, learning how to read music and read solfège and stuff I can't tell you about now because it's all gone.
How large of a choir is it? How many people are in it?
They had like 3 or 4 groups, like age groups. So there's probably like 60 kids in the choir. And I was in like the youngest group. And then a couple years later, I was in like the middler group.
Yeah. You started playing the guitar in the 8th grade?
Yes.
I read that. No, I heard that.
Oh my God.
Right?
It's amazing. How did you do this?
Well, you talked about it once.
Okay.
So you started playing the guitar in the 8th grade. You had an important record in your life back then.
Oh, yeah.
Let's hear it. You know what I'm talking about?
Jewel, Pieces of You.
What was the single or singles from that record?
You know, I found that album because it was a picture of a young girl and it was just in my mom's collection of CDs. And
like
I was
on the cover?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a girl. I'm a girl. And I just grabbed it.
Right.
And that song, Adrian, and it's just like this really sad song about this like kid drowning, which I didn't register while I was learning it. And yeah, there's so many like deep, dense love songs on that record. And I just in the past year realized that those songs are written like right around the time, like right now in her life. And so like I'm thinking back at how long it was ago that I learned those songs and like had no idea their meaning or their depth. And I was just like, yeah, listen to this.
Yeah. You used to think musical theater was your future.
I did. I had never actually done any of it.
What was your interactions with live theater and musicals?
I just loved Annie.
Oh, yeah. Everyone does.
I remember seeing that when I was a child.
In the flesh or on the TV?
On the TV.
Yeah.
And there was, at this one point, there was like a call for Annie's in New York. And I had been singing for a few years, and I would like sing like the whole soundtrack all the time. And I was like, Mom, listen to me. I can do this better than all of those girls. Like, just take me. I can do it. And she was like, Kelsie, like, I can't afford to take you to New York to audition for Annie. Like, that's crazy. And I was like, ugh.
Were you in the choir at that time, or was this? Because I felt like being in the choir, that might have like helped the.
It wasn't theatrical music. It was choral. It was a lot of interchanging notes, like a lot of harmonies, like learning how to read music. So there was classical stuff and jazzy stuff, and it was just a lot more knowledge. Musical theater was just a fun, like, idea. It was fun to think about running around the stage and like being really dramatic and spinning around and dancing. And
Right.
I don't think I would have actually been very good at it.
Do you think your mom thought the same thing?
No, she believed in me.
You said when you write songs, and it's kind of rare, or it was rare, when you would actually sit down to actually write a song. And usually when you would sit down to write a song, it was because some things were terribly wrong or terribly right. When was the last time things were terribly wrong to produce a song, Kelsie?
Ooh, I wrote a song earlier this year and a couple songs last year. But that's still true. I'm learning how to like alter my perspective and think about things in a broader sense. I think just as you get older, that happens. But it used to be that the best inspiration would be really heartbreak. And so whenever I was pining after someone, or someone had hurt my feelings, or I had felt abandoned or whatever, that was when the musical emotions would like fly out of me at rapid speed. So periods of my life that have been darker, you know, for a young woman, those always produce a lot of music for me.
So you would be sitting on the couch, messing around with the guitar, experiencing some sort of emotion because of some experience, and more would come out during that time, or you just wouldn't even really pick up a guitar until something happened?
Sometimes music speaks to me and sometimes it doesn't. And I think that is a big difference between me and people who are really dedicated to that. Like, I've got a lot of things I get to play around with, and if music isn't doing it for me in that moment, then I'm going to try something else. Which is why I do so much stuff.
Right.
Because I want to find the thing that makes me feel really awesome. But with songwriting for me, it starts with a phrase or it starts with an emotion, and I'll just start to play the guitar and try to find that emotion in the picking or in the strumming. And once I have it, I'll like repeat a phrase, or like I'll think about one idea and I'll think about all the feelings I have as like a cone. And I'll try to find words that are sort of surround the cone, that aren't a part of the situation, but surround the situation. So it's not too specific. It doesn't talk about anyone in particular, but it's a broader array of feelings, so that would help people connect to it later and help me be able to translate it into different parts of my life as I get through that scenario and move on to other ones. Some of them are a little more storytelling, and I'll throw in a couple random things that aren't real just for a little flair.
That's a beautiful answer. Do you write it down on paper or in an iPhone note? Or do you quick kind of scramble for materials, or how does that work?
I use my notes on my phone, and a lot of the time when I'm driving, I'll think of a lyric or a word or a phrase that like really sums up an entire situation, and I'll just like put it in my notes. And after a while, I'll have like a whole page of just like weird phrases, and sometimes I'll pull from there, but I always use my phone. Sometimes I'll chicken scratch on a piece of paper, but aesthetically, I don't really love how that looks. And sometimes that could stress me out too much. So I'll just use my phone.
Right.
And then I record these little, like, I call them ditties. And I'll just like play that part over and over, and I'll record it on my phone. And if I get tired of that piece, I'll just like put it down, leave it, and I'll have it on my phone so I can like listen to it later. And I'll be like, did I feel connected to that? Yeah, I actually kind of like that. How could I think about that idea more?
Like lyrics or guitar riffs?
Lyrics.
Chords? Okay.
Yeah. Never guitar riffs.
And
I'll forget them in 5 seconds.
You use voice memo for that, or what? Is that what you use?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I do that too sometimes.
It's nice.
Yeah. You've played in bands before. Happiest Lion was one. Your current project is Pyrrhic Win, spelled Pyrrhic. Pyrrhic is a term I haven't heard before. What does it mean?
Pyrrhic is an amazing word. It's an old world word, and it was used to describe victories. And it was a victory in which the victorious person won the battle, but lost absolutely everything to get that win. So, did they win?
Is that a real question, or let me just think on that for a little while?
On it, and I think that, like, I make decisions like that, win or lose all, frequently, and I think that we all kind of do. Like, even the decision to fall in love, or to buy a house, or to have a child. Mm-hmm. It's a whim. It's a thing you're thinking about doing, and you just go for it. But you could lose everything.
Can you give a specific example of a time when you encountered that phenomenon?
Deciding to devote yourself to somebody is really hard, and that's complicated. And at some point, it might not work, and you might feel like you lose everything. When I started my first store, that was a huge, scary decision. Deciding to make artwork, deciding to be free from a 9-to-5. Deciding to take trips when I can't and I shouldn't, like, all of it. It's just the decisions that I'm making that are making me more myself, but are also, like, they could get me into big trouble.
Right.
Or not get me into big trouble. They could have lasting effects on my psyche. There we go.
Those all sound like the most meaningful things in one's life.
In mine, yeah. Definitely.
You've been working with producer Jake Hall on a full-length album. What's the current status of that record?
It's done, and it's mastered, and it's wonderful, but I need some imagery made, and it's also, like, the most expensive type of project to do. Being a creative is difficult, but being a musician is, like, so much more expensive than, like, anything else. And I know that there are ways around it, and, like, doing things yourself and home recording and all of these things, but the odds are just so not in your favor. I mean, in any situation in music.
Not in your favor in terms of being commercially successful or producing.
Making money, yeah. For it to translate into actual money coming in. Like, with music, I feel like people just put so much into it and never get any actual funding out of it. And that's complicated because everything that I work on, I've trained myself, like, needs to be a profitable endeavor. Because if this is all that I'm doing, then, like, it needs to be able to support itself and me. Pyrrhic Win is, it's a 6-song EP, but it's just like a medium-sized record. It's done, it's mastered. I need some imagery made, and I need some video work done, and I need either a manager or a publicist, and all of that is just, like, so expensive. Like, even just one of those things.
Do you need all that?
I think so. There's been plenty of times where I put music out with so-and-so and so-and-so and by myself, and I don't want this music to only touch the handful of people that are in my life.
Yeah. Because
as much as it's going to affect them, I didn't make it just for the 20 people who know me. Mm-hmm. Like, I want it to affect, like, a lot of people. And the way that the music industry works now is, like, you got to follow these freaking rules, and it sucks. But if I don't, no one will hear it. The idea of, like, going viral or something on my own, like, it's just nuts. Like, it just happened too many times. Again, the odds are just not in my favor. I'm a female musician. That's kind of trending right now. The music's electronic, and it's brilliant work. Like, it is like a traumatic scene in a Batman movie where, like,
keep going,
all of this stuff has happened, and there's, like, buildings exploding, and it's all sort of in slow motion. It's kind of quiet, and it's snowing. Like, that is what Pyrrhic Win sounds like.
Would it still be a Pyrrhic Win with all of those resources at your disposal, though?
Good question. Good thinking.
Because in art, your blog, which turned into the Etsy site, or maybe it was both at the same time. Like all of those things, you didn't know. Like you went for it, and it worked.
Yeah.
Right. But now it's different.
But now I know. With music exclusively, like I've just been watching. Like my best friend is a publicist in New York. Like she created her own company, and like she knows the rules. And I mean, I know the rules. I've been watching my friends for a decade now, like try and put music out and like crowdsource and ask for help and join labels and blah, 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 blah.
Right. So music is different. So is it better to create and complete, or is it better to shelve something until everything is just so?
Music sort of hits both of those points. Pyrrhic Win, I want to be explosive. And I only want to put it out when it's the perfect time and the circumstances right. Because this music and the work that Jake and I did are invaluable. And for that project, I will not accept anything less than somebody other than my friends and family hearing it. And I mean, they will, for sure. But I mean, I'll always play and I'll always keep creating. Just the next project is Pyrrhic Win. I want to tour electronically. I want to go and not be a girl with her guitar on the stage and everyone has to be quiet. I don't want that anymore. I did that for a long time and it was really wonderful and intimate, but it was also really hard in places that were loud, which are the only places where people are really allowed to play music. And when people didn't listen, like this music is the heart of me coming out of my mouth. And it's a little too personal, just like throw at a wall where no one is paying attention. And that I haven't heard too much of within like my music friend group. Like they're all sort of able to separate themselves. But that's been a real challenge for me. And that's why I want to be playing bigger things and with bigger sounds that sort of grab the attention and are like, you have to feel this? Because there's so much time in my life where I spent playing acoustic guitar at these pop-up things where no one was feeling it and no one could hear it and no one was like loving it in the way that it was meant to be loved. But yeah, my goal with Pyrrhic Win is to like force people to pay attention.
All right, it's now time for us to play a game called Rapid Fire. The game works like this. I will ask you a question and you will answer that question as quickly as you can, but sometimes I may ask a follow-up question, which may slow things down a bit. Kelsie McNair, are you ready to play Rapid Fire?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Polka dots or stripes?
Polka dots.
Paisley or plaid?
Neither.
Heels or flats?
Flats. Clogs.
What are 3 things that every girl should have in her wardrobe?
Underwear that fit you well, things that are really soft, and a belt that can accentuate your curves.
What are 3 things every guy should have in his wardrobe?
A nice white t-shirt that doesn't have coffee on it, and some funny socks, because that's fun. And
one more?
Just...
Yes?
jean jacket, because you're wearing one.
Are ankle socks annoying, functional, or cool?
I don't care.
Cowboy boots, thumbs up or thumbs down?
If you love them, you wear them.
Do you love them?
I don't wear them.
What's one thing you wished all women wouldn't wear?
I don't know. Again, if you're comfortable in the thing you're wearing, you rock it, girl.
What's one thing you wished all men wouldn't wear?
I don't really like that haircut where they shave the sides of their head and then put a tiny bun on the top of their head. But I'm not judging you. You can have that if you want it.
Barrettes or bobby pins?
Banana clips.
What's that?
It's this really funny thing from the 80s that I'm the only person that I know who wears them, but they're like this long banana-shaped thing, and you put it on your head, and it gives me absolute unicorn hair. I kid you not.
It looks like Jaws.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I know what that is. Jean jacket or leather jacket?
What about a cape?
Never mind. Film or digital?
Film.
Necklaces or bracelets?
I'm a necklace gal, I think.
What's the best looking flower?
The best looking flower? What? I like hellebores. Those are really weird and wonderful looking.
What's the best smelling flower?
Gardenia.
What's your favorite candy bar?
Ooh. I like Musketeer bars.
What's a talent that you have that people don't know that you have?
I can do tiny doodles pretty well.
What does that mean?
I just draw little
Like little
doodles.
sketches.
Just little drawings of cups. Mostly they're just cups.
Kelsie, what's a talent that you don't have but you wished you had?
That I could dance. Oh, I wish I could dance. I can't not dance. I just can't. I don't look fluid. I feel like I look like an adorable rock rolling around.
That's lovely. What time did you wake up this morning?
7.
Is that early for you?
No.
What's your favorite holiday?
I like my birthday.
So selfish. What's your favorite book?
The Name of the Wind.
What's that?
Patrick Rothfuss. It is a fantastical story. It's written by a contemporary writer, and it is about this guy who is a musician and a magician, and he has all these turmoils and trials, and he's silly, and he's my best friend.
That sounds cool. What's the name of it again?
The Name of the Wind.
What's your favorite color?
Right now, I'm really into like purpley gray.
What do you think my favorite color is?
Blue.
It's orange.
Oh.
What was your favorite cereal when you were a kid?
Fruity Pebbles. Fruity Pebbles.
How many different hair colors have you had over the years?
A lot.
Like?
Blue, red, silver, white, purple.
Would you say 5,
Yeah.
20, 50,
10.
or 100?
10 max.
Okay.
But I'm always sort of varying in this sort of palette right now, which is like a white, purple, silvery.
What is your original hair color?
It's blonde.
You went to college in Boston, Massachusetts. You attended the School of the Museum of Fine Arts.
Yes.
Is that the correct name?
Yep.
What was college like, and what did you study?
I actually have a degree from the New England Institute of Art also. It's an audio engineering degree. That was weird, but good.
What do you mean weird?
It was my early stages of understanding what the music industry was like, and it was just a boys' game. I was constantly sort of looked at like this.
By men?
Yeah.
You're squinting one eyeball
Yeah.
and looking a little sideways.
Yeah, just like real skeptical. And so I felt like I just needed to keep doing it just to prove to them I could. And then I racked up a bunch of student debt, which like wasn't worth it. And like now all of that knowledge is sort of like not useful anymore because all of those programs are like completely redesigned and music industry is changing so freaking fast.
Yeah.
So I gathered up an audio technology degree of science, and then I went to the School Museum of Fine Arts. I threw in an application right as the due date was due, and it's a private, super conceptual art college, and I had like no idea what I was doing. I got in on scholarship, which was amazing. I spent 2 years there. It was really difficult, but it was also kind of magical. It was like Hogwarts for contemporary art. There was weird stuff happening every day all over the place.
Did you get in with a portfolio of photographs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Film photos. It was all the ones that I was telling you about, like just the things that I knew I felt magic about, but didn't really know why.
And when you say film photos, you're referring to film as opposed to a digital photograph?
Yes.
Okay. Do you feel like the experience and the money was worth it?
Not for the audio degree, but I learned a lot about myself and I got a lot of exposure to the world. And I moved to Boston. I didn't even know one person there. And that was important for me. It's filled with memories I cherish so, so much. So I'm glad I did it. I just wish I didn't have these fat loans waiting for me. Like Jabba the Hutt trying to lick me.
You worked at Goodwill in Boston. What is the difference between the merchandise from a large metropolitan area like Boston and the merchandise that flows into thrift stores in a medium-sized city like the one here in Tidewater?
That Goodwill was on a main strip in Boston on Commonwealth, and it Boston is the home of 83 universities. It is the most college town per capita of the whole city area land mass than like any other place. And so it was just like consistently like people my age clothing. I mean, the style is always varied, but for the most part, it was just like young people clothes, which was great for that particular store because it was right in the middle of everything. But also, it's really cold up there, so they have a lot more winter gear. A lot, and that stuff takes up a lot of space. But yeah, working at that Goodwill was the first sort of training that I had around retail. It was the first retail job I ever had. I was doing window displays there, and also it was right next to the Paradise Music Club. And so all these musicians would come in before their shows. Like I met Justin Vernon from Bon Iver there.
Nice, yeah.
I sold him a bow tie.
Awesome.
Claim to fame. And then I saw him the next year at South by Southwest. And I was like, Justin, hey, I sold you a bow tie. He was like, I wore that bow tie on like the Tonight Show that night.
Awesome.
And I was like, damn, this is how I get famous.
You could put that in your bio, in your credits, like wardrobe consultant, right? On
Yeah.
Jay Leno. People do that.
Yeah, probably.
You said young people clothes. What does that mean?
Just like millennials, I think they did a lot of like mall shopping or shopping online, J. Crew, Forever 21, sort of, disposable fashion. So they buy stuff and then throw it away, basically. Yeah, I learned a lot about recycling and about creating value at that job. And I knew that I would be good at it with the imagery, paired with the imagery and the individualism that I was sort of trying to exude. I knew I could probably take that and create something with it.
You're best known for your business called With Lavender and Lace. And With Lavender and Lace started as a lifestyle blog about your life as a college student and artist. What year did you start the blog and what was on it?
I think it was something like 2005, and it was just a home for my film photos. And I remember writing a lot at that point. I don't really write as much anymore, or at all anymore. But at that point, every time I had a thought, I just sort of dribble out of me like poetry, and I just have these paragraphs of things that worked and didn't work, and softness and hardness, and I'd pair them with my images.
Daily uploads or every?
Yeah, I was obsessed with it. I probably did it like 2 to 3 times a day sometimes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Blogspot?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. You had an Etsy shop around this time too? Mm-hmm. What were you selling on the Etsy
So
site?
I would spend all my paychecks at the Goodwill, on the Goodwill, all the clothes that I wanted to like try and style, and I took all that stuff home, and then I'd like use my skills in Photoshop and in digital photo that I was learning at the museum school, and I would shoot video, or I'd take a bunch of weird lifestyle photos, and then I just use those images to try to sell the product. And that was really like the first sort of golden moment, knowing that I could make some money doing something like that. I was able to be creative. I was also like selling something and like branding an identity within all of that with Lavender and Lace. Those are my earliest days of sort of understanding and recognizing that I could maybe make something out of it.
How long did it take for you to feel like you found an audience for that Etsy site?
Back then, Etsy wasn't as saturated. So when people were looking for something, they'd find you because there just wasn't as much stuff as there is on there today.
Mm-hmm. So like within a few months or less or more?
I mean, it was like people would get on there, and if you had good photos, they would share your stuff, or they'd feature you at the top of the page. So like I had people buying for me quite a lot in the beginning because I had pretty photos and I was really excited about it. So I'd work on it all the time. I just like find new work and do new photo shoots, lookbooks. Yeah.
What is the secret to taking a good photograph of your product?
Good lighting, it not being wrinkly. We're talking about clothes,
Yeah.
particularly.
Mm-hmm.
Good lighting and a confident girl who feels good in the clothes.
Like a model?
Yeah, I like seeing things on people.
Yeah. You moved back to your hometown and opened a successful brick and mortar boutique that shared the same name as your Etsy store with Lavender and Lace. How old were you at that time?
22.
What were you thinking? And I don't mean that the way that came out. What was the vision or what was the goal?
I felt like I had gotten home after school, and I feel for anyone after college. Like the step into what are you going to do now? And you have 6 months until your loans kick in, and you're under a lot of pressure from your family and from your university. And you're also just so tired from like busting your butt for 4 years after, 18 some years of also being in school. I looked for jobs and I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought I would just like sell stuff online and continue just like being an artist and figuring it out. I created a studio in my home. In the apartment we had an extra tiny bedroom, and it became a little shop, and I had all those clothes, and I had a roommate at the time, and he was like, why don't you just open a store? And I was like, that's crazy. And I was like, I don't know, maybe I could, maybe I should. I have all the stuff. Like, it wouldn't cost me anything really. And so I started looking for like retail space. And this was before all of the cool stuff here. This is before Hanson Biscuit, before Field Guide. This is before you wanted to walk down Granby.
Yeah.
But I saw potential because living in Boston was so expensive and it was so beautiful, but I could not live in the places that were beautiful because it was unaffordable for me. And living in Ghent like gave me that feeling. Like it was lovely. It was cheapish. It had walkability, which isn't like a thing in Hampton Roads. Right. So I felt great coming here. There was space for my mind. If I was sitting on grass, I knew that no one had vomited on it 5 minutes before.
Right.
Like,
and there's
space.
a little culture dancing around the area that can help put a little wind at your back.
At that point, it was pretty small, but I was really excited. So it didn't really even matter if anyone was there or not. I was like on a roll, and I figured that out about myself, and I'm glad that exists within me. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I opened it within a month of finding that little space behind the tap house, like probably like 120 square feet. Like it was smaller than this room.
Yeah.
And I made it adorable, and I opened it like a month later.
And it was successful.
What is success?
Making rent and making a little cash in your pocket.
I don't think I made any cash in my pocket, but it did pay for its own existence for sure. I was also doing other gigs like photo stuff around like some weddings and things. But yeah, I remember the opening night, it made $800 and like the rent was $600.
Right.
And I was like, this is going to be awesome.
I would also say success would be being 22 and having the guts to go through with something as crazy as that is.
Yeah.
Right?
I had nothing to lose. That was sort of the feeling the whole time. I wasn't that afraid because I already owe a bunch of money to somebody for school. I already have the clothes. I'm really excited about not living in Boston anymore. Like, what could go wrong? Mm-hmm.
And then you got the other larger store.
Mm-hmm. Which was the same rent.
And it's a good spot. Beautiful.
It was so beautiful. I just happened to be driving past and it was just like empty one day. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's ivy on this building. Like it's probably like 6 times the size of mine. And it took some real maneuvering to get the city to let me in there. I had to change some zoning laws, and the neighborhood did not want me in there because they were afraid about when I left. They were like, what if a porn store wants to come in? And it was weird. Weird times. It's also really difficult, in an old neighborhood to try to be progressive and put out new ideas. But eventually I got in there and had a grand opening about a year after the first one. And I was there for 3 years.
And that was successful?
Yeah.
It was a destination. You were on people's radar and on people's maps, even outside of the area, you would say, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then after 4 years of running the shop, you closed it. Mm-hmm. Why did you close it?
I was burnt out. It took a lot of responsibility to run a business like that, and I just didn't really want to be in there anymore. And I could just tell that I wasn't giving it my all, and I don't really want to do a project that isn't getting all of me. It was such a beautiful space, and it created an awesome community, and I think it did the job that it was set out to do. It was like give people who don't have or who are fluctuating in their identity, like an identity and a place to feel confident about themselves and the choices that they make. It was amazing. I met so many awesome women, and I feel so grateful about that situation. And I let it go on for just the right amount of time.
And what happened to all the merchandise?
I just sold it off, or I donated it back to the thrift stores I probably bought it from.
Do you think if you didn't still have a site to sell other things on or to sell things on, that you would have kept the store going?
No. I think the problem with the store is that it keeps me in one spot, and I'm an idea girl. I got big ideas, and like I can't put any time to any ideas when a whole idea needs me every minute of every day. And during one year, the year before the last year, I found the phone cases. So I was running that shop full time and then leaving and filling out like hundreds and hundreds of orders the same day, like every day. And I was just so overworked and so tired and stressed and sad because I was a slave to my own project. And like since then, I've done a lot of research on like entrepreneurs, and there are like time limits in which we like to engage with the projects that are ours. And I had always hoped that maybe someone would come in and like want to take it on for themselves. And if that had happened, I would have been like, it's yours. I don't want it anymore. Like it could keep having its life within you, but that just really didn't happen. But I was like, oh well.
Do you miss it?
I mean, I miss it because it was wonderful and it was special, but I don't miss the way that it made me feel after all that time. It was so great for so long, but it burned me out. Simple. That's it. It burned me out.
I don't want to burn you out by keep asking you questions about it, but did closing the shop take away a creative outlet that you no longer have?
You can only do so many window displays. You can only Instagram so many outfits. Like I could only try and sell a dress with creative words so many times. You know, I had used every phrase with the word floral or sassy in it known to man 4 times over. And it became like stale. And that's when I knew that I was like, all right, I'm not being utilized for the energy that I know is inside of me. So I have to like either figure out how to remake this or move on. And I didn't want to do something that would keep me stationary. Like, I haven't gotten to travel or anything because of it. Like it took all my time, all my money, all my energy in a great way. But I'm missing out on some experiences I really want to have.
You're best known now for your cell phone covers that you hand decorate with pressed flowers and plants. Talk about how you came up with that idea.
It was just kind of when cases were starting to become a fad, and I know I wanted one, and I had all those pressed flowers from when I was in college, toying around with the language of flowers, and I had been using resin in those days too. So I just sort of made my own.
The resin, like the adhesive resin.
Yeah, 2-part epoxy resin. Yeah, so I had that already sort of in my life, just in my craft box, and so I just made my own, and it was awful on my standards today. But I remember the first day I had one that was dry on my phone. I just looked at it for hours. I was going up to Washington D.C. with some friends to see Daughter. And I just held it in my hand the whole drive, and I was just like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I was like, I'm going to make these guys. And the girls in my car are just like, okay. And I was like, and I'm going to sell them for $30. And they're like, whatever. They're like, no one's going to buy that. And I was like, I don't know, maybe I could do it. So I did it.
So the pressed flowers are something that we hadn't talked about. And how did you even come about being interacting or finding or being interested in flowers or pressed flowers or any kind of flowers?
I think at some point I just like sort of picked a couple up and put them in a book because I was into bookbinding for a minute. And after they were dried, what was left is this like just skeleton, like this body of it's a plant's sexual organ. Like it's so weird, but it's so beautiful. It's like a natural color. It's a weird shape, and it's made of just matter, I don't understand it. I still don't understand it. But I just started to get really excited about flowers, not particularly alive. I mean, some of them. But yeah, I just started to press a lot, and I realized that there's been like languages and like meanings associated with them, and it's kind of a dead art, and I kind of am excited about dead arts.
You're interested in the Victorian era.
Yeah.
What was that aesthetic like? Give me a time period.
The earliest like books came out in like the 1740s. A little bit earlier, it started to be like a murmur of a conversation about that they had meanings. And then like a bunch of books came out, and everyone had their own book, and all the meanings sort of like some of them didn't match up. And it became this like just fad to like send flowers or wear flowers or have flowers on you some way. And like every single detail of it meant something. So like if it was a rose bud, if it was facing one way or another, or if it was given in like a tiny bouquet versus being left on its own, if it was dried, like all of them had these subtle nuances of emotions like attached to them.
As a way to communicate with someone else.
Yes. Yeah. Like love or distrust or hate or remembrance or like just any word you can think of. And like all of these books that were talking about the meanings, like a lot of them didn't match up. And so there was like the idea of thinking about someone giving a yellow rose, which in some books means friendship and in others means total jealousy, to someone and them like misinterpreting it. I find that really interesting and silly. Like, how serious did they take it?
So when you're talking about the books, you mean that there were books from this era that said that a yellow flower means this, and then
Yes.
some other book in Connecticut was different than the Virginia book
Yeah.
because it said the yellow flower really means this.
Yeah.
And that is when people were wearing flowers on their person. And approaching someone, but also handing them like across the cobblestone street, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if that
Or like left in front of your door, or like left on a bed.
What's the process for making the cases?
I either press or buy pre-pressed from some mom and pop shops that do them sort of commercially.
Press the flowers? Mm-hmm. Okay.
The way I press them, and they work, but because there's still moisture within my press, there's a lot more browning and bending, and it's a lot more natural looking. And the press flowers I get from the mom and pop companies that press them, they have like vacuum presses that sort of suck out the moisture, maybe apply a little bit of heat so that the flowers stay really bright and colorful. And I'm not really interested in getting into all of that. Like, I don't want to manufacture press flowers. I'm more interested in, what kind of art can I make with them?
In October 2015, you sued Target and one of their suppliers in U.S. District Court for copyright infringement. Can we talk about this? Okay. On the Lavender and Lace website, that's fine. We don't have to. On the Lavender and Lace website, you started selling T-shirts, which you said took you a long time to go through with because you felt extremely intimidated by design and textiles.
Yeah.
What's scary about making and designing T-shirts?
There are just so many people who already do it so well.
Oh, yeah.
There are people who are just so good at making T-shirts, and I'm okay at it, but I'd rather let them shine.
Yeah, that's cool. But regardless of that, you did it. You have one up. Is that right?
Yeah. I'm interested in creating work that people can wear in different ways other than a phone case, because as awesome as it is, I don't know. I'd like to try something else. Also, resin is toxic, and I wear a mask on my face and gloves and goggles every day, and I don't want to do that for the rest of my life.
You said that you love to plan things out. What happens when something comes your way that is unexpected or that you didn't plan for? How do you handle those situations?
I think during the time where I had the store, there was a lot less space for variables like random things happening that I need to take care of, because there's just no more mental space. There's no time. There's not really any money. So at that point, I would get stressed and anxious, and they're energies that I don't really want to have in my life all the time. I mean, they're only natural and they're going to consistently happen forever. But the store was just taking up too much of myself and too much of my brain space to deal with like regular life happenings, which are wrenches being thrown into the machine. So I've actively tried to like create a lot more space since having the store, and be better at adapting to problem areas, and taking enough time to be able to process it in a right way and not such an emotional way. And I can't tell which is like me growing up or me leaving the store. They're all kind of blending.
What are you currently working on, and what's coming up for you?
I am working on some art. I have right now, which will probably be done by the time this is out, but I have a cookie installation that I just made. It is a pointillism image of my eye at the Chrysler Glass Studio, and it's made out of cookies. And that's awesome and weird, and I can't believe I pulled it off. I am going to be in the Glass Wheel Studio show about slide film in a couple months. I'm doing a installation piece, a massive installation piece at Work Release for the a show about gun violence in January. And I'm hoping to have my record out within the year. It's been a long time coming. I just need to start working on that project more so that everyone can hear the Batman magic.
And be quiet as it's happening.
I mean, they can't help but be quiet.
Kelsie, I really appreciate you coming on the show.
It was so fun.
Thanks for coming.
Yes. Thank you.
This is Andrew Paul Cronin, and you've been listening to the Q&A with A.P.C. To hear archived episodes, go to soundcloud.com/QAAPC or subscribe to the show on iTunes. For exclusive content, including upcoming shows, behind-the-scenes pictures, and more, follow the show on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at QAAPC. The executive producer of the Q&A with A.P.C. is Ben Riley. The music was arranged by Soup.